Welcome, friends and fellow heathens, to the Northwoods Kindred podcast. I'm Bodvarr, the chieftain and Gothi of the Northwoods. Now, I don't know if you follow the trends on the socials or not with, the feuds and the fights and all the things that happen. And I'm referring primarily to TikTok. There's been some feuding and stuff going on TikTok, and I don't really want to talk about that. That kind of stuff comes and goes like the tide. I want to talk about the unintended consequence of that kind of interaction and behavior on the public domains. You know, we're getting a lot of new heathens coming in here, in a lot of cases kids, young kids like 14, 15, 16 years old that are, for one reason or another, found the gods. And when they get on the socials because they're super happy about all the cool things that they're discovering, they get treated very poorly. I notice this a lot, and it's happening. Not only is it happening individually around these social media applications, but it's happening sort of collectively within particular communities in Norse talk, and I think that that's disgusting. I think we're going to try and do better, but that's the unintended consequence, and it's happening to the new ones, the ones that are less capable to defend themselves or articulate their needs or anything because they're brand new here. They don't really know what's going on. So we're going to get into this podcast, and I'm going to talk about some of the things, not to you, but I want to talk to the new people, the ones that have been here, maybe 2 years or less, that are fairly new, and they're starting to get their feet under them, and they understand essentially the key players and the rhythm of the game, but really don't have a depth of knowledge. They don't have many years of experience on the path, unless they just happen to be like a really good researcher, because all the information's there. It's not like it used to be where 5 years on the path was hardly anything. By 5 years you maybe owned a couple of books and you've been to a couple of public gatherings, but you really didn't know a lot, whereas the amount of information you can get in 1 year now just trumps that. So I don't want to come across like I'm trying to say that the old way is a better way, because obviously there's so much information out there. It's even confusing. But I just kind of wanted to put things into perspective, and I wanted to talk to the new people and kind of give them some pointers about feeling their way around the community. So I really want to just give them, the new people, especially ones that get caught up in some of this drama, I just want to let them know that, you're safe here. This is a cool place where we can study and learn together. But there are some little nuanced things that you would progress faster and have a much more enjoyable time if you adhered to some basic principles. Before I jump into this, I do want to say that if you want to support this podcast and the other things we do, like the YouTube page and the outreach and some of the free stuff that we give away and flyers and all those sort of things that we do, if you want to help support that, we have a Patreon community. I'd ask to go join it if you want to. If you want to lend a hand and help us offset some of the costs of this hosting and, and the other things, the expenses that come up from day to day. And if you don't, that's fine. We're going to still continue to do all of this stuff and put it out there for everybody to get their hands on for free. But you do have better access to it if you go to our Discord community, join the community, engage with people there, and share information back and forth. You don't have to be Norse pagan, but you should be some form of pagan or heathen anyway, if you're going to fit in well. But we welcome all anyway, because the conversations can be had between Norse pagans and then any other path as well. So it's a fun place to be. It's very mutually supportive. It's a really good environment to hang out in, to ask questions and to learn and to, ask those questions that you can't ask on those other groups. So all of that's waiting for you there on our Discord. Everything's in our link tree, which would, depending on what app you're on, there'll be a link below. Or if you just want to take a shortcut, you can just Google Northwoods Kindred, and a whole bunch of links to all of our different places and spaces comes up. So you can just follow one of them and go check us out. Maybe we're in a place where you didn't know we were at. Maybe not. So let's get into it. So the first thing I want to say to the newcomers to the faith that are just getting here, or have been here for a short period of time and have kind of settled in, I would like to say get to know the gods. Get to know the gods. I know that in a lot of cases, a particular god or goddess brought someone into the faith, and they tend to put a lot of focus on it. but it looks, from the inside looking out, it looks like a holdover from your Abrahamic days, from the faith you left. It's one of those things you can't get rid of, is to elevate one god or goddess above the rest. It doesn't work like that in this pantheon. In Norse paganism, or pretty much any paganism that has a pantheon, there's generally a chief of the gods, but there's not any one god that's more important than any other. They all kind of have to work together. They're all kind of cogs in the machine to make it work. So I would say that if you've been here for a while and you tend to get wrapped up or focused on one god or goddess, I would say kind of reach out in your knowledge base, pick up some books, read some stories, and just sort of get to know the other ones and see if you can't feel a little personality, or, at least a little empathy and maybe gratitude for what they do, as opposed to whoever your patron or matron deity is. So definitely I'd say reach out of your comfort zone a little bit and really get to know the rest of the gods. It's really going to help you down the road, because a lot of these conversations aren't going to always revolve around just one god or goddess or one deity. They're going to revolve around deeds of the gods collectively, and you should have like a foundational knowledge of all the base stories that are in the Codex Regius or the translated Poetic Edda. You should really just have an understanding of those sort of things. And I'm not going to recommend one translation over another or anything else. I just say get a story or a poetic version, something that you're comfortable reading, that you can understand and extrapolate like the meat and potatoes of the story from. You can't always do that with the poetic side unless you've been doing it for a while and you kind of learn how it reads. But get a good story one, read the stories, get to know the gods and goddesses, become their friend, understand how their energies work and how they feel, like what the personality feels like, and you'll be head and shoulders above where a lot of people are at your stage. The next thing I would say is practice ritual and ceremony. Practice ritual. And I'm not going to say practice ritual the way that I say to do it, or practice ritual the way some agency or some other organization says to do it. Ritual is part of the path, and it's a part of our own personal growth, is to develop these sort of routines and rituals and ways to honor the gods in our daily life, as well as special occasions and seasonal events. So one of the things we can do is we can fabricate rituals and then go perform them, and then pay attention and record, like, what are the outcomes? How does the ritual work out? It's funny, I was just recently in California for the birth of a new kinsman, and his father, my nephew, has a bum knee. He damaged it, and it's in a brace, and he asked me to do some healing on it. So he and I and his father all went out and did a little healing ritual on his knee. And it's kind of nice because even just this morning he called me and he was like, "Hey, I just wanted to say that I've been working with the runes that you gave me for my knee, and the ritual is really, really taking hold. I can got full flexibility back, and it healed me in other ways too." And I won't get into a lot of that, other healing, but the point is that we did a ritual that hadn't been done before. We put it together with the best information we had, and because of intent and just the vibes that go into it, and the scatterings of skills that we have to put this ritual together. And now I can record data and I can say it worked or it didn't work or worked better than expected. Why did that happen? So practice and perform ritual and ceremony, and don't get too wrapped around the idea that, I'm going to anger the gods and they're going to strike me down. It's not how they work. At least it's not in my experience and all the rituals and things that I've done. I've never seen the gods ever strike us down or hold anything against us. Now, sometimes there's a cost. If you're asking for stuff, there's a payment. There's always a payment. So you always have to be willing to pay what you ask for. That's not necessarily in the contract. You don't get to say, "I want this and I'm willing to pay whatever you ask." You don't get that. If you say, "I want this is what I want or I need, and I'm not capable of getting it myself," then they will get it for you and they will charge you for it. And so you have to be willing to pay the price. And maybe I'll share with you a little bit of an example of how that worked out for me once. My son was in a hospital in a coma, and the doctors were coming in to tell us that he wasn't going to wake up. And my Vidki and myself, we put together a rune collection of runes, and we wrote them on him in certain places in certain ways, and then we were chanting the runes over him. And then when we finished, very soon after we finished, he woke up from his coma just as the doctor was coming in to tell us that they couldn't wake our son up and there's just nothing more that they could do. And he woke up. And it was a cost associated with that. So of course, he survived and he grew up and he's still alive. But the cost of that was that I could have my son living and well, but I couldn't have a relationship with him. It took a long time for us to build a relationship back because I didn't understand that when I asked for that help to wake him up and to keep him alive, I was making an offering that I may or may not have been prepared to make, but that's what happens. So I'm here to just kind of give you that wisdom and say, if you're going to ask for something, no matter how urgent or how important it is, there is a cost. There's always it's always a quid pro quo with the gods. So just know that, but don't let that deter you from practicing and doing ritual. I do ritual all the time just to say thank you. And the reason I can say thank you is because I know the gods and I can see their influence when things go well for me, that I know who helped, and I can perform a ritual to say thank you for that. But they also know that it takes work to perform rituals and practice. These things take work. They're not just granted. You don't just wake up one day and you are, a shaman, or you don't wake up as a rune master. You don't wake up as a Gothi and you can just automatically just start performing ritual like it's cool. Those things take practice, and we know that Odin knows this because Odin is willing to go out and learn and practice and fail, and his halls are full of slain warriors who, they got it wrong once, then they go to Valhalla, and then it's the same thing every day. It's just practice, practice, practice. So you can't imagine that something like practice makes perfect is lost on our gods. Of course, they know that practice makes perfect, and you're not going to get there if you're not out actually doing the ritual and the ceremony. Now, if that's not your jive, if you just want to wear a hammer and say, hey, I'm Norse pagan, that's fine too, because there's an element of that in every religion. There's always the people who are there to be somewhere, I guess, for lack of a better term. So no hate, like do whatever makes you comfortable. But if you really want to progress in the community, you got to be able to hold a conversation, and that's all part of that same thing. But doing ritual, that's where the reward comes in. That's where we can really feel our connection to our gods. And moving right along into the next one, we need to establish that connection with nature. And that means get out. And I know that, a lot of our lives are online. I mean, you should see just this little studio that I'm shooting this podcast in right now. Our lives are online. Our lives are digital now. But we can't neglect all of nature altogether. We have to get out in it and take off our shoes and walk barefoot in the dirt and sit under a tree and listen to the birds and the squirrels heckle each other and smell the smells and, pick some flowers and eat the weeds and go mushroom hunting. There's so many great things to do. There's absolutely an activity in nature for every person and every lifestyle, whether it's picking mushrooms or going on a hike or going swimming. Of course, I understand that not everybody has access to nature like I have access to nature, but nature is everywhere. There's no place you can go that doesn't have dirt on the ground and a tree or a bird or something. So I don't think I have to get too hardcore on that one. Just connect with nature. Get out when you can. Sit in the grass. Remember the times when you were a kid where you just lay out in the grass and look up at the stars, watch the clouds float by, and connect with nature. Do the best you can to just connect with the world around you and notice things that you didn't notice before. Plant a garden. If you can't plant a garden, bring nature indoors. Get a succulent, a plant. Talk to it, feed it, water it. Maybe take it to the next step and grow some tomatoes on your balcony. Grow a little food for yourself. Just do these sort of things that let you see the divinity in the world around us, because it's hard to see divinity when you're like me in this little studio. Everything in here is manufactured. There's absolutely nothing natural in here. Everything is plastic and aluminum and metal and lights, and there's nothing in here that's nature or natural, and it's kind of stressful. So I always have to go out and just reset. I can just go out and just sit in the yard and just listen to the animals and the birds and just smell the air. So once you connect with nature, then nature will provide you with that reset when you need it. So That's an important part. This is, these heathen paths, these pagan paths, these are very nature oriented. So if you're going to be on this path, you should, if you can't connect with it a little bit, at least respect it, and at least don't throw trash out your car windows and stuff like that. And I know some of you are like, what kind of an idiot does that anymore? People do. And some of them are heathens. And we're going to work on being better heathens. So the next one on my list is to work on building community. And this is one that I could talk on for a long time, because that's what we do here at the Northwoods, is we try to build community. We try to bring people together. And if you spend any time on our Discord, then you'll know that that's the truth. We don't ask for anything. We have a couple of moderators who are just hanging out and getting in conversations and talking. It's not an overly dramatic place. There's rarely any drama. We don't slander anyone inside or outside of our community. We don't slander the other churches. We don't do any of that stuff. We just hang out and we help each other get better. We don't ever push the things that make us worse, which is our anger and our slander and the tiffs that people get into and the little feuds that are floating around. We pretty much keep all of that off of the boards, unless there's an occasion where it's like, hey, somebody's saying some stuff. We might have some people pecking around in here. Be on your best behavior. Like, we might throw some stuff out like that. It's like, hey guys, let's don't give them anything to screenshot. So, and that really happens. In fact, I would say that's only happened one time. That's not the type of community that we set up. That's not the kind of a place that we built. And I think that if you just want to go ask questions and learn, then that's a really good place to be. We don't have any problem with trolls. We don't have any problem with any drama. We don't have anything. So build your community. So, I mean, that's I kind of went on a tangent here and pitched my Discord community, but that's fine. We're also building community, as in we're networking and connecting with other kindreds and other leaders of kindreds and other groups. The point of this is we should all be able to connect and build community. So obviously not everybody is in the position to start a kindred or start a channel or create a Discord or anything. They just want to be a part of it. When I say build community, I really mean join the community and foster the conversation that helps people grow, like we do on our Discord, and don't take part in, or at least try to exclude yourself as much as possible from the parts of the community that are drama driven, that always create problems for people. And I got sucked into that stuff early on when we first started doing this. And I found that I would get sucked into the drama because I'm kind of a hot-headed person anyway, like you might expect from a retired U.S. Marine. I'm learning how to navigate this stuff too, but I would get sucked in, and I know full well that no amount of arguing is going to change anybody's mind. You're not going to get sucked into a pissing match with someone and convince them that they're wrong. It's never going to happen. I don't think it's ever happened in the history of arguing. And it's not going to happen here, certainly not in this hard-headed community. When we end up with that kind of friction, the best thing we can do is disengage. When you disengage from a conflict that could go out of control, that's what I mean by building community, because you've essentially just removed a point of friction and help people move on to the next topic, heal, help each other, whatever. And a lot of times in building community, you have to withdraw when you're right. And that's a hard thing to do. And it's a hard thing for me to do too, but I'm working on it, because I have noticed that nobody wants to be told they're wrong, even if they're wrong. And a lot of people are wrong, but they don't know they're wrong. And that's a really hard argument to have if somebody is adamant about whatever it is that they're talking about, and they're absolutely hard fast that they are correct. And it may very well be correct for them. And that's a hard argument to have, because sometimes you have to question, and sometimes you have to ask yourself, am I wrong? Is what I'm saying only correct for me in my practice, or is it correct? Is it factually correct based on the data? And I think a lot of times we might notice that it's correct based on your own UPGs, but don't be afraid to take a look at that whenever the friction wells up, and because that's a really good time to reflect, is when there's a lot of friction, when people are going at each other and mudslinging and calling names, and when there's friction like that, that's a good time to look and see, hey, where do we need to make these repairs? What's going on here? Don't be drawn into it so much either, because you'll find in a lot of cases the friction is between different communities, And these communities have got people in them that have been in them from the beginning. Some of those people are still there and will be there, but they might have falling outs in the future and leave. And some of those people were in a fight against you at one point and back again. You can see how messy this whole thing gets really quick. So I don't want to dwell on it, but I just want to kind of just implant it in your brain housing group that sometimes when friction starts, there's a point in there where we can withdraw and we can learn from it and we can de-escalate a situation. And I'm not trying to tell anybody that I'm good at it. I'm just saying that I know where I'm bad at stuff and I try to work on it. So I'm just trying to tell you that that's one of the like key points that says, hey, fix me now or forever suffer the consequence. So build community, put effort into being a part of the community that you're a part of, and then just kind of learn and grow as a collective. That's really the way to build community, even if you're not physically in a position to build an actual community. Maybe I should have actually changed the words to foster community instead of build community, but you get the point. And one thing that I hear people say once in a while, but I feel like it's talked about nowhere near enough, is honoring the ancestors. Now, this is an ancestral path, and there's both sides of the argument. You don't have to be ancestrally connected. You do have to be ancestrally connected. That doesn't matter to me, and I don't think that that's really what the path is about. And there is, of course, people who don't have a connection to their ancestry. They don't know who their parents are, orphans and whatnot. And those are all exceptions, but it still doesn't mean you can't connect to your ancestry. It doesn't matter where your ancestors are from, whether they are Scandinavian descent, Northern European, or Southern European, or African, or Asian, or Middle American. It doesn't matter where you come from, but it does matter if you honor your ancestors, because no part of this path is about turning your back on your own ancestry. It's not. There's nothing about this that says that there's any honor in turning your back on the people that you came from. So honor them. And if you want to honor them and the Norse gods and honor collectively and in the same way, then that's your right to do. Do that, and don't let anybody tell you you can't. But don't feel like you have to push your Native American ancestry or your Spanish ancestry off to the side in order to honor the Norse ancestry when it's not necessarily your ancestry. You're welcome in this path. You're welcome on this religion. But to honor the ancestors is honoring your own bloodline. So honor them. Honor them proudly. Honor them before the gods. Honor them before Thor and Odin. Let them know that that's your family. You are a proud Norse pagan. That is your family line. So the real point is, the key takeaway is just honor your family line. Honor your people. They created you. They are there for you. And there's zero reason to think that you can't honor them and be a proud Norse pagan at the same time. Don't be afraid to learn from others on this path. There's a lot of people who will disagree with you a lot. And they might disagree with you about every single part of this path. But I can guarantee you that they have something to teach, that there's something to learn by working with someone else. Now, I'm not saying go adopt someone's ideology. I'm just saying be willing to listen to other people, even though it's fairly obvious that you're not going to agree on stuff. But listen to what they have to say and listen to their argument. Their argument could help you understand even a completely different part of the path. Everybody, it says it in the Havamal that not every man has got some worth. No one is completely useless. And then he gives some examples, like a deaf can be a good fighter, that kind of stuff. And so it's already, there's precedence for it in the lore, in the Havamal, that there's good and bad in all people. And that includes you. There's bad in you too. And there's good in you. And those people who you think are bad, there's good in them too. And there's things to be learned by holding a conversation. Holding a conversation is not endorsement. And it doesn't matter. Like, I can think of the far left or the far right on this path. If a far left and a far right had a conversation, that does not mean that one endorses the other. It only means that they're willing to learn and grow and meet somewhere in the middle. And that's likely never going to happen. But we're not going to be on the far left and the far right. We're going to stay somewhere in the middle anyway. just like with the last point, when you disagree so strongly with someone, that's an opportunity for learning. There is a lesson in there. There's an opportunity to learn something or see something from a perspective that you never knew existed. And don't pass up that opportunity to learn. It may make your blood boil. It may make you screaming and hopping mad, but don't look at it as an insult to who you are, the fiber of your being. It's simply a different perspective, from somebody who's led a vastly different life. People, every single person, identical twins lead vastly different lives from each other, and they come to different conclusions about modern situations and events and mundane things. Everybody has. Why do you think it is that we think left and right are so strongly, like the hard right, the Tucker Carlson fan, those guys are pulled hard right, and the hard left, those people are pulled hard left, and they don't ever want to meet in the middle. But I think that if they just stopped and talked, we would understand that both sides, there's a lot of things we have in common. We agree on what we need. I think we do. I think in most cases everybody agrees on what we need or what we should do. We just disagree on how to do it or how to come to that conclusion. So in reality, our conversations should be about how do we get to where we're going, or how do we even find out where we want to go? And then how do we get there working together, instead of deciding that you only turn left and you only turn right, so we're not compatible, we'll go our own separate way and never talk again. That doesn't help anything. That doesn't help anyone. So be willing to learn from other people. Be willing to talk to people and learn from their experiences and see things from their perspective. Because what that's going to do is that's going to give you, if you start looking at things from other people's perspective, it's going to really broaden your path, and it's going to give you a much more depth of knowledge and empathy, because you're going to be able to understand what the other people are talking about. You'll understand why they're so emotionally driven. You'll understand why they overreact in some situations, or why some things turn violent and some don't. I think for the most part, everybody's just trying to live their own life, but there are extremists on both ends that are trying to push their values on the masses, and that's what gets the press, and that's what gets riled people up, because you can be here and someone else can be here, and then you have these mouthpieces here that are riling everybody up. They're the ones that are really causing the trouble, and then everybody back here is just back in their play. It's kind of a weird way to explain it. I don't know if I'm even doing it right. I might actually have to cut this out, but ideally, you just don't want to get rallied into one corner or another. You want to be able to stay a little fluid in the conversation, talk to other people, get to know other people, get to know their perspectives and their experiences, because that's going to help you develop your own personal path with a little bit more wisdom than you would have if you were strictly stuck to people that thought exactly the same way you did. I can't say it enough, and I say it all the time. Experience people who don't think like you, because that's where the learning takes place. Now, I'm not telling you to go join any neo-nutflake Discord servers and try to make friends there. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying that when you disagree with people, large and small, let's make an effort to listen to their point of the argument. There are going to be some absurdities, but there's going to be a lot of middle ground that we both agree on. So it can never be a bad thing to reach out with your hand, shake somebody else's hand, and hold a conversation, no matter what the conversation is about. It can never be bad. It only turns bad when we let our emotions get in the way and we forget that we're supposed to be learning from one another. Cultivate your own personal values. So I'm sure we've all heard of the 9 noble virtues. That's great. Somebody wrote down a bunch of really good virtues, packaged them all together, tried to create a pagan version of the 10 Commandments, and then tried to peddle that snake oil to the rest of the community. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into it. I will say that none of those words are bad on the 9 noble virtues, but the packaging is what really does it wrong. There's nothing wrong with honor. There's nothing wrong with that. The point is, those are there, and some people accept them and some people don't. But you should cultivate your own personal value system, not based on that, but based on the way that you want to be treated, and the way that you hold, the example that you hold of yourself to treat other people. That's how you cultivate your own personal values. You decide that you're going to react a certain way to certain stimuli. And if that stimuli is an opposing viewpoint, make a conscious decision that your reaction to that is going to be a non-violent or reactionary knee-jerk sort of a thing, and be more of a calm, inquisitive argument. Because the best thing you can really do, I've noticed arguing with people, if I really want to argue with someone, I won't argue at all. If I'm arguing with someone, I feel like maybe they're right on the edge of understanding where I'm coming from, and we can have these little conversations. But if I really, really need to get my point across, then I won't argue. I'll just have them explain their point to me till it doesn't make any sense. That's a whole different avenue of approach, and it doesn't get violent. And it's like, oh, really, that happened? Well, how did that happen? Well, why did that happen? Oh, that's the event. Well, how do you get through something like that? How do you do that? Like, I just beat them up with questions until finally they get trapped in a loop that they don't understand. And then you can be like, well, I have an option too. Like, we do it this way because that loop doesn't work for us. And I think most times that you may not be able to convince anybody to your side of the argument, but you will at least be able to let people see that your side of the argument isn't in ignorance. It is in, it's because of, a series of events that created the situation that you find yourself in. I think that that's probably the best way to do it. In addition to the 9 noble virtues and that garbage, there's also the Assyrian Code of 9, which I don't know anything about either. Maybe put it down there and let me know. I for the longest time, I kind of thought they were the same thing, but apparently there's a difference. So if you know anything about them, put it down there. Maybe I'll do some research and dig it up. I mean, is it even worth knowing? I don't understand it past just the name or the skin deepness of it anyway. I don't really understand where it came from, what makes it different from the other ones, or if it was a reaction to the 9 noble virtues. I don't know. Again, I don't want to talk about it all day. If you want to know more about it, hit me up in the comments, and I'll see if I can't do some more research or talk to some old people that have been around for a while and figure out some more about it. The point wasn't that, but the point is you can write your own code of ethics. You can think of the ways you've been treated and just decide that you're not going to treat people that way, or the things that you want to live up to, maybe some of the core tenets of your chosen god or goddess, your patron or matron is about. Maybe that's who they are. Like, maybe you want to write your code, your personal code, as something to live up to, like honor and integrity above reproach, like Tyr, or strength to overcome anything, like mentally and physically, like Thor. Maybe you want something like that, and you want to put those in there. You want to just create your own value system so that you have a compass. And I'm not here to tell you what your values should be. I'm saying that you should know them. You should be able to codify your values and say, these are my values, and these aren't what I'm going to. These are the lines in the sand, essentially. I won't stray from these. I won't allow these types of poisons to infect my belief system. However, sometimes you have to keep your mind open, because some things, like I said earlier, that you think might be poison are simply a different perspective, and they come with information that you can use. Whether or not you're going to adopt the system or change your whole mindset, it does always come with information you can use. And that's about it. And nobody can write that for you. And that's kind of some of the heartburn that I have about people who make those attempts at a 10 Commandments or a 9 Noble Virtues, is that nobody can write your core values for you. Everybody thinks about things differently. And some people seem to have 0 core values. But if you want to be a good heathen, if you want to progress in this community and stay out of trouble for the most part, and learn as you go and be open-minded and, and develop into a functional, strong heathen by casting off all of the dogma and the baggage and the chains that you dragged with you from whatever religion that you left. A good way to really design your own path is to understand and codify your own personal values. So once you get those down, then everything else is butter. And I'm not saying that your personal values have to follow any other standards at all. Some people think that they're a Viking because they went to prison for B&E. That's their value. Apparently, for some people, that's a good way to go. That's how you earn a respectable living. That's their core values. You can't hide from that. So know your core values, and once you codify them, then you can really, it really gives you a lot of framework to package up your practice the way that you want to practice it, because it gives you the borders, it gives you the walls, it gives you the boundaries that you're not going to cross, which limits the playing field down to something that you can be comfortable with. At least that's how I look at it. It's not the easiest sort of a concept to explain, especially on a platform that should be mostly verbal like this, so I don't have any infographics or anything explaining how it works, but codify your personal values and then use them to define the rest of your path. I know this was a short one. There's been a lot of drama lately, and I just wanted to make sure that I reached out with a helping hand to our new Norse pagans, Norse heathens, our new friends and family on the path. And I just want to let you know that we're here for you. Bounce over to our Discord or our websites or whatever. Find our link tree somewhere, Google it maybe, and then come visit us, come hang out with us. We're a place to learn. We're a place to get to know other heathens, movers and shakers, community leaders, kindred leaders, people that actually want to build a community and not just destroy one for our own entertainment. I've had a lot going on this week, and truthfully, this isn't a super complicated topic. I just wanted to kind of reach out there, throw out a handshake to all of our new family, friends, kinsmen, Norse pagans, Norse heathens, however you identify, and just say welcome to our community. Look us up online, join our conversations, be a part of it, be open and willing to learn and communicate, be willing to see things from another perspective, and always willing to follow Odin's example of get that information no matter what the cost. Even if it means you have to suffer an ego death, or you just have to keep your teeth together and let somebody else talk. I hope you got some enjoyment out of that. I hope that you got something useful that you can take back and you can use to make your community and your practice better in the long run. I am Bodvarr, the chieftain and Gothi of the Northwoods Kindred. Þórr viki, my friends.